have to brush with death before you can really reflect on life, on the people and times that really meant something to you. Like childhood, dreams of sailing on silver seas in wooden shoes, visions of sugar plums dancing. Silver seas, sugar plums.
He looks like a whole load of sugar plums fell on him. It's a good thing they all missed his trusty tape recorder.
The visions, the nightmares of a child are perhaps the most frightening and horrifying of any human animal can conjure. Some people who were in Chicago during the first stifling hot weeks of July would say that was so. If they were still alive.
If you're a parent of a child who has wild dreams, you know what's the best thing you can do? Listen to them. Ask them to elaborate if they can. Pay attention. Because soon enough, those dreams will become the more realistic kinds, such as becoming an astronaut or herding cats. If you listen to their dreams now, they'll share their dreams with you then. It's one way to help soften the whole teenage rebellion thing. If your kids know you've always listened to them, they know you'll listen to them now. So much of good parenting can be summed up in 4 words: shut up and listen.
Michelle Kelly, age 25, was one of those people. A psychology graduate student and lab assistant, she was hurrying at 10:45 p.m. the night of July 3rd to get off her job early in order to catch the last plane to suburban New Jersey.
That's a sleep study lab. That guy is wired up similar to the way several of my family members were hooked up to check them for sleep apnea. That little bump nearly woke him. But why does he have IV bags for a simple sleep study? We know this is an episode of Kolchak, and she's the first non-regular cast member we've been introduced to, so we know that sound means something really bad is about to happen.
Cause of death, chest cavity crushed. Official police statement, hit and run auto.
Nobody's asking how a car hit her in the chest and nowhere else. They'll put her case aside for now. They have another matter to deal with.
Ambulance unit requested at Chez Voltaire Restaurant. Answer 1040. Address 99717 Lincoln Boulevard.
Chez Voltaire was the Frenchiest of Chicago's French restaurants, which meant that people paid exorbitant funds to be abused by the waiters and eat minuscule portions. The total value of Chez Voltaire's wine cellar exceeded the gross national product of Paraguay.
It's true, he looked it up, but they may be short-handed for a while. Their chef is dead.
And their chef was put on a level with Debussy and Gauguin. But now he'd been murdered, and he looked just as dead as any short-order cook and any greasy spoon.
Even if he does have a crushed chest cavity just like Michelle, I think he might get up and slap you if he heard that.
Absolutely. I don't.
Kolchak, you know you're not supposed to be here.
Johnson,
Now, come on.
Johnson, every man must make a living, right? Well, you know the procedure, Carl.
What?
You know. Don't touch anything. Don't get in anybody's way. All right?
Oh, yes, sir, Captain Siska, sir.
We have yet a different police captain, this one played by the immortal Keenan Wynn. I don't know what I could say about him that others haven't already said better. One of the things about him that strikes me the most is the way he adapted his acting style to fit his look as he got older. Not many actors can do that, but as he progressed from a young up-and-comer to a more mature fixture, he adjusted. I think it was the secret to his longevity. Today, he's the hard-bitten police captain who's seen it all and doesn't take anything from anybody.
So what was this green stuff on him down here? These leaves?
Oh, it's probably salad. I mean, this is a restaurant.
Well, yes, of course, but what are your men doing taking specimens of salad? Oh, don't tell me. They're going to put it in doggy bags, take it home and eat it.
Now, come on, Carl. You know that's a procedure. Why don't you just back up a little?
Cisco, what's happened to you?
Huh?
We used to call you Mad Dog. I mean, where'd all the sweetness and light come from?
Yeah. Well, I was becoming a little too wrapped up in my job, Carl. It was warping me.
He's been in therapy. Instead of always blowing his stack and driving himself into a heart attack and an early grave, he's learning to deal with things calmly and rationally.
Captain Cisco, what's his name?
What's the story?
His name is Roman Clementi, formerly pastry chef at Chez Voltaire.
Has he confessed, Captain?
Not this yet, but the motive will be sufficient. After all, he can't remember where he was last night. He says he became insensate from the consumption of too much alcohol.
In other words, he drank until he passed out, but became insensate from too much alcohol sounds much more police captain-y.
What was his motive, Captain?
Well, you see, Clementi and Piaget were bitter enemies, and 3 days ago, Piaget fired him, so he immediately tried to attack him with a meat cleaver, and, of course, he was stopped, and the people overheard him say that he would try again.
The official cause of death is suffocation from intense chest compression. Kolchak says, "Are you kidding? I saw his chest. It looked like a bulldozer hit him."
Now, Mr. Kolchak is exaggerating the wounds. Of course, we don't know what kind of a weapon Mr. Clementi used to inflict those blows.
What wounds? What blows? There was no blood there. And what about that salad all over him there? What was it, a vinaigrette or green goddess,
What
Captain?
salad? Hey, what are you talking about?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That'll be all for
Yeah,
now.
but Captain Cisco just...
Hey, Kolchak, what are you talking about? Salad, huh?
I don't know anything about salad. Some lettuce hanging around, that's all. I'm a meat and potatoes man myself.
He almost made a mistake there, but the other reporters won't get any more out of him. Still, he does need to know what that green stuff was.
Paco?
Forget it, Kolchak. You I don't need.
Paco! Is that any way to treat a friend who's really trying to do you a favor? And that is your green convertible out in the parking lot, isn't it?
Yeah?
Yeah, well, I was on my way home, and I saw a bunch of kids around your car, so I tried to chase them away, but before I could, they'd let all the air out of your tires. Well, I tried. Maybe they'll come back. Not even a thank you, Paco?
Off to the files to copy down the scientific name of the stuff, then go find someone who can tell him what the pronounceable name is.
But the big strikeout that night was made by Bobby Ray Solange. Age, 22. Occupation, would-be superstar. But at 11 o'clock the night of July 6th, Solange had finished a very hard day of playing street guitar to less than enthusiastic audiences, and he figured he owed it to himself to relax with his version of the evening martini. He picked the basement of the old Samuel de Champlain apartments as the place to be alone.
The fact that there are still people who have to sneak around just to smoke a joint and unwind, the fact that there are people in prison just for smoking a joint is one of this country's biggest shames. We should be embarrassed. Once in an episode of Dragnet, Sergeant Friday was doing a Q&A with some members of the public. Someone asked why drinking alcohol is legal and smoking weed isn't. Friday gave the most ridiculous answer I ever heard. He said, "Alcohol is used in social situations as part of the culture and it's not always used to get drunk." He said, and I'm fairly sure I'm directly quoting him here, "With weed, the idea is to get so high you don't know where you are or what you're doing. That's dangerous." I knew nothing about weed at that time, but even then I knew something didn't sound right. I don't know who told him that's the goal, but they lied to him. People use weed just like they use alcohol, to relax, unwind a little. Some use it to get stoned. One thing I discovered when I started using it to treat my chronic pain is it enhances the senses. My wife works hard and she gets tension knots in her back. I've never been good at finding them to help massage them out until recently. A couple of hits on this, and guess what? My fingers are so sensitive I can find the tiniest ones, trace them to their source, and rub them out, to use gangster talk. Just as wine or other alcohol can enhance the flavor of food, weed can enhance a lot of other things. Among other things, if you ever try the activity that's been called man's favorite sport while you're high, I doubt you'll ever go back to doing it the other way. Too bad Bobby won't get to finish his joint, or even start it. That basement is almost never used, so he won't be found as quickly as Michelle was. Speaking of whom, Kolchak has been tracking down Michelle and is off to talk to her former employer.
Whoops, I beg your pardon.
Quiet. That soundproof glass can do only so much. He's remming.
Really? What's remming?
REM, rapid eye movement, the stage of sleeping where dreaming occurs.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Hillary. I just can't help it. Mom? Mom?
Sounds to me like he's nightmaring. I'd suggest waking him up.
If you're Dr. Pollock, I'd like to very much talk to you.
Oh, it's about time somebody wrote something about my work. I may be an MD, but I do know the value of PR.
Oh, I just bet you do, and I'm sure your work is terribly interesting. But I'm really here to talk about Michelle Kelly.
Oh, that name means nothing to me.
Michelle is the one who was hit by the car errand.
How many of us recognize Colt from Conquest of the Planet of the Apes and Battle for the Planet of the Apes? Severn Darden was another character actor who made the stars look good. He's best known for those Planet of the Apes roles, and it's hard to say what else he might have accomplished if a heart attack hadn't cut him down at age 66. Right now, he's a guy who does sleep research. Our man in the other room is a volunteer subject. We'll learn that they have kept him asleep for 6 weeks but won't allow him to dream. The doctor just wants to see what happens when you do that to someone. He would do better to study the effects of his craniorectal inversion on the people around him. Kolchak says, I think Michelle was murdered.
No, please.
I do not think that anyone could have killed Kelly. She had no enemies, no jealous boyfriends that I know of. She was a schlub.
A schlub? How do you spell that, Doctor? S-C-H-L-U-B or S-H-L-U-B?
I can't be sure. Oh, she was eager, bright, but unbearably clumsy.
She was always pulling knobs off equipment, running into things. Why, one time she even bumped into something and almost woke the subject. That could have ruined the whole study.
She was such a schlub, Doctor. Why did you keep her on?
I tried to be a nice guy.
How's it working out, Doc?
I don't know.
Sounds like there are a lot of things he doesn't know, like how to interact with humans. Kolchak isn't much better, but he can get the information he needs out of the lady at the Botanical Gardens anyway.
What is it? Tillandsiosneod?
Stenoides. It's right straight ahead of you, and it'll tell you everything you want to know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Tillandsiosneod. A Spanish moss. Oh, yeah, they say it's found in the Bayou country in Louisiana.
And that's pretty much the only place it grows. Chicago is too cold for it to survive unless it's in a greenhouse like this one. So what's it doing all over a dead French chef?
There's a 20 in it, right?
Right, I said yes last night. If the chest is caved in.
Any chest wounds, it doesn't have to be caved in.
Like one of the fine points of it. Just tell me what you got.
No, I'll tell you. You'll say it's not what you want. It really is. Then you won't pay off.
Unlike Las Vegas, I always pay off. Now, tell me.
A meat wagon over at St. Vincent's picked up a DOA.
Yeah?
The chest is messed up pretty bad.
Where'd they find the body?
The old Champlain Apartments on Dearborn in the cellar. Guy's name is Bobby Ray Solange.
Yeah, Bobby Ray Solange. Did he have any Spanish moss on him?
No. It was garnished with parsley.
Okay, now you're just being silly. Is he sure this guy knows what Spanish moss is? Kolchak will go to that basement and check for himself.
Sheesh.
If you find the joint and aren't sure what to do with it, I can help you with that.
Hey, what's the big idea? The landlord wants this room closed for keys.
Yeah, why?
Why? Because we've got all kinds of kids coming down here necking, smoking cocaine.
I didn't know you could do that. If you can smoke it, why do people stick it up their nose? I think everybody has seen Ned Glass in something. A lot of people remember him as Doc in West Side Story, but from the time he got into television around 1953, he was in pretty constant demand. He was born in Poland in 1906 and grew up in New York. That means in 1953 he was only 47, but he had already lost most of his hair and developed that characteristic look of his. He took it and ran with it, just like he's doing here. He most often played this sort of character, wisecracking, a little hard-nosed, with a strong accent and an attitude to match.
Last Thanksgiving, we had a guy stab his girlfriend down here. Here? Last night, a hippie was crushed to death.
He starts describing the condition Bobby Ray was in. He and the police figure it was a gang beating.
And then they dragged in some kind of vegetables and threw dirty water all over the floor.
What kind of vegetables?
Green glop. The cops took it with them, and they're welcome to it.
Green glop. Huh?
Kolchak needs to head back to the Botanical Gardens and see if green glop is another name for Spanish moss.
What about the victim? You know anything about him?
He was a hippie. Dirty hair, filthy jeans.
Yeah, yep.
Carried a rotten sandwich in his guitar sack.
That's the kind, all right. Guitar sack?
Yeah, a broken up, crummy old thing. And all around the body on the floor, there was nickels and dimes and quarters. Hey, you don't suppose he was one of them street singers, do you?
The official name, at least here in Seattle, is buskers. There's a place down at the Seattle waterfront called Pike's Place Market, and they have designated areas for buskers to perform. It's a lot of fun to walk through and hear all the different types of music, and drop a buck or two in their jars just to show that you have some idea how hard it is to do what they do. If I lived closer to Seattle, I'd think about giving it a try, but 100 miles round trip is a long way to go to make a few bucks a day.
What's the take, Pepe?
Très bien, très bien.
Real good. 10 more bucks and I can get another half-an-hour studio time.
Okay, here's 10 bucks right here, right now, for anybody who can tell me about Bobby Ray Solange. Huh?
I know Bobby.
You do?
Comes from a parish near mine.
Parish? What do you mean? He's religious, right?
Wrong. Not that kind of parish, man.
Oh.
A county in Louisiana.
A county in Louisiana? Well, that's Spanish Moss country, isn't it? I mean, Spanish Moss goes down there. Did you know that Bobby Ray's dead?
Listen, man, I gotta cut a demo. Take it slow.
Yeah, but is that all the thing? Is that all I get for my 10 bucks?
Looks like it. His friend Pepe is a little more talkative.
Monsieur, I know Bobby Ray.
You know Bobby Ray. Uh-huh. That's all the money I got.
Merci.
All right, now what's your name? Pepe? Start talking.
Pepe Schmeppy. My name is Morris Shapiro from 116th Street and Jerome Avenue in the Bronx.
Morris.
He says when you're his size and in his line of work, you have to do the French thing. People expect it. He did know Bobby as well as his roommate, Paul Langlois. They were both good old Cajun boys, part of a migration from Louisiana to Chicago, people looking for better prospects than they could find in Bayou country.
Oui. Now, Solange is a nice kid, but his friend Langlois, you can keep. Come on, I'll show you where him and Bobby live.
You mean you think that Langlois killed Bobby Ray Solange?
Oh, Langlois has a real bad temper. Bad and stupid. Whew. And his fiddle playing.
Yeah.
Well, a dying pig in a kazoo sounds better. Come on, let's go.
The two of them also had a major falling out recently, and Paul Langlois is nowhere to be found. It's a pretty safe bet that he's the culprit, at least in Bobby's case.
They were always talking about the bayous and the Philly gumbo and the Paramalfait and all that.
What? The para what?
Yeah. Am I a Cajun? Some kind of Michigan legend. They were always laughing about it, saying, watch out for Paramalfait. Paramalfait's gonna get you. That's their idea of a joke. Hicks, bumpkins.
Yeah. Listen, I've got to, Pepe. Come on, Morris.
We won't see Morris or Pepe alive again. Kolchak searches for a while, and there's something moving in the shadows and growling like a dog. He can't get a look, but he tries to take a picture. And if he had a real camera with a real flash, he might get something. But considering how many cameras he's dropped, lost, and sat on, I think we know why Tony won't spring to get him a good SLR. He develops the pictures, I'm glad he got rid of that kid from last episode, then goes to the office and says, it's the craziest thing! My little man disappeared and I'm pretty sure whatever is in this picture killed him. Yeah, we'll get right on that. We'll look for a dark spot peering through a hole in a slightly less dark spot.
But
Constitution of the United States guarantees to the American people a free and unfettered press. From colonial times, we have enjoyed just that. An unfettered press is one thing. However, oh, Carl, let me ask you something.
Tony, whatever it is, Kenneth Wade, I'm on my way down to headquarters. It's very important.
Well, this is very important, too. And the press club wants me to deliver this address, and I'd like to get your comments.
He really thinks Carl will stay around for that. Kolchak tries to talk about his little man, and Tony isn't interested in finding out whether that's a euphemism or not. Just like Carl isn't interested in his speech and slips out another door.
So, why are you laughing at my photograph here? Well, look, so it's a little blurry, huh? Now, that shot shows a murder taking place. Now, why don't you pick up this guy Langlois?
I'd like to pick you up and drop you right down an elevator shaft. Oh, and that was beautiful what you did to poor old Paco.
Well, some kids let the air out of his tires, that's all. Why blame me?
You let the air out of the tires.
Me?
Yes, you.
Whatever happened, I'm okay, you're okay.
Well, to tell you the truth, you're not okay. The people in group therapy didn't tell me I was ever going to meet anybody as un-okay as you are.
Kolchak has single-handedly undone 18 months of therapy in one day. Well, everybody needs to be good at something. His only other talent is writing stories nobody will ever get to read.
And Paul Langlois? Well, we're way ahead of you on that, too. We tracked him down through Bobby Ray Solange.
Well, that's terrific. You got him. Now, what are you going to question him?
Oh, well, you see, I can't wake him up to do that. He's asleep.
Asleep? Has the heat wilted your brain pan? Wake him up!
He's got an ironclad alibi. He's being monitored 24 hours a day by people in those electric gizmos. He has been asleep for over 6 weeks. He is a volunteer subject for a sleep study at the university.
That's right. He's the guy in the other room. Kolchak is back at the lab, but the doctor is stonewalling him. He's not interested in murder cases at all. Paul Langlois is his entire life at the moment.
Is he dreaming or remming or whatever you call it?
Natalie, my pet, will you go get Danforth, please? I told you he's not being allowed to dream. That's why I hate talking to laymen. Look at the EEG. Steady delta.
Yeah, well, then why all the buzzes are going off like a racetrack tugboat?
We don't really know. It just happens occasionally. We'll find out at the conclusion of the experiment.
If that's his EKG, he's in a fibrillation of some kind. That usually requires shocking him. But instead, we're going to stand here and look at his EEG and declare everything just fine. And we're not going to let Kolchak raise any questions to the contrary.
About the time I was getting bounced out in my ear, Patrolman Warren Lunt, assigned to a beat in the South Side's hillbilly ghetto, was making his nightly sweep along Dahlstrom Avenue in search of undesirables. He found a most undesirable way to die.
Is there a desirable way? I haven't heard of one because they all end the same way. I don't have time for any of them. Although I have to agree, dying while totally baffled about what's killing you does kind of suck. Kolchak knows what he'll find at that scene, so he won't even bother. He needs to find out more about this legend Morris Pepe was telling him about. He knows one possible place.
Better, but that last riff still doesn't do it for me. We'll take it again.
It's not going to help. He is not ready for prime time. Kolchak will spare us all another take and interrupt him.
Well, what is Paramalfait?
I give up. What is Paramalfait? Can you believe this? Here I am busting my chops trying to cut a bullet, and this guy wants me to tell him bedtime stories.
What do you mean bedtime stories?
Paramalfait's the boogeyman. That creature's lived in them swamps since before us Cajuns got there, they say.
A boogeyman, does he have... I can't work this.
You know, a bullet is a tune that goes right to the top. It's a head.
Then you have nothing to worry about. There's no way that stuff will be a bullet, so he may as well talk to Carl. And then go home and practice some more. Much more. Way more.
Does this Paramalfait have Spanish moss all over him?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, I'm going to beat the drums in here all day for you, but you're going to talk to me. Now, just why do you call this Paramalfait a boogeyman?
Paramalfait's supposed to come from the upper bayou regions.
Yeah?
He's wet, he's covered with rock and Spanish moss. And when I used to get out of line when I was a kid, my mom would bring me back around by telling me Paramalfait'd get me.
What do you mean, get you?
She said Paramalfait'd squeeze the life right out of me.
And how do you get him?
You have to stake him with a stick from Bayou Gum.
Seems pretty straightforward. They always have a weakness. You just have to find out what it is and go with it. Okay, Kolchak has what he needs. You can go back to cutting your Nerf dart now. Sorry, but I've played guitar for some very good fiddlers. He's not one of them.
And I want you to put it on the record, Captain, that I consented to this under duress. Natalie, you're my witness.
Doc, I want you to give him a second injection. I want this man awake.
Oh, well, a dead cop's a lot scarier than the university's legal department, huh? It's too bad for that motorcycle cop you didn't make up your mind earlier.
Isn't this debasing enough without having this ass spraying around here?
You know, I tend to agree with you, Doctor, if I saw my Nobel Prize going down the shredder. But the fact remains that your guinea pig here dreamed 5 people to death.
The doctor is arguing with him, but strangely enough, the captain isn't. I dare say he's listening.
You sent him to a mental level that no human being has ever been to before. And somehow, his dreams, his nightmares have created a creature, a legend from his childhood, named Paramalfait.
I told you, he has not been dreaming. He wasn't dreaming.
How do you know he wasn't dreaming? You yourself told me in there you didn't understand what was happening.
He was in steady delta. Get the EEG. No, I'll get it.
His steady delta is going to tell him nothing because since his time we've learned that dreaming does occur during delta wave sleep, not just in deep REM. Had he really been paying attention to his subject, he might have been the one to discover that, but it's too late. And Paul's not responding to the injections that are intended to wake him up.
What time did that motorcycle cop die, huh?
8:30. I suppose that's got something to do with this little fantasy of yours.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it has, yeah. I happened to be right here in this joint at 8:30 tonight when his vital signs went crazy. Let's see, June 5th. Where are we? June 5th, 2 a.m., uh-huh. Yeah, and July 6th at 11 p.m., right here.
There are serious bumps in his brainwave and vitals at each of those times, and each one corresponds to one of the murders. It's not solid proof, but let's hear a better explanation. If we can wake him up, maybe Mr. Langlois can tell us.
Something is very wrong. I gave him twice the usual dosage of methamphetamine. He should be out of it.
Well, if you don't wake him up, Doc, then somebody better start whittling a spear out of Bayou Gumwood, because according to legend, that's the only thing that's going to kill Paramalfait.
Will you shut up about that now, right now?
Shut up. Did you hear that? He heard me. No, not he, it. It heard me. It doesn't want to die.
You realize that means now the monster's going to be after you, yes? I have a feeling he didn't think this through.
He isn't dying, is he, Doc?
That assumption's a bit premature, but I'll tell you one thing. I can't wake him up.
You said that assumption was what, Doctor? Is this what Paul signed up for? Did you warn him that the study might kill him? Of course you didn't. He's just a street rat, not a big important scientist like you. Captain Siska needs to arrest him for manslaughter right now. But hopefully with Paul dead, the Paramalfait is gone.
Evening, Bruno.
What are you doing, Clark? Getting any?
Getting any. What happened?
Leaking from the roof.
Uh-huh.
Plumber will be out tomorrow.
Yeah, want to bet it's next week? Oh, boy.
That's exactly what he needs right now. Tony and some of his pals have come here after the banquet to celebrate some more. Carl just wants to write his story and deal with the water that leaked all over his desk.
Well, all right, let's get to work here. Good. Yeah. What they got up there anyway, Bruno?
In case you didn't catch it, there's a bunch of Spanish moss in his drawer. That means the monster is still out there, and as I predicted, it's got Carl Kolchak in its sights. He'll leave Bruno, Tony, and Tony's friends thoroughly baffled when he starts talking about monsters living independently of some guy and spears out of gum trees. He breaks into the botanical gardens, locates the right tree, and makes his spear. It's not really a spear, it's more like a gladius, the Roman sword. They weren't very big. Now, where in Chicago would you look for the Swamp Thing? I'll say it for you, Carl. Yuck! Now we have a fair idea that the dirt he was covered with in the beginning isn't dirt. But say it with me, it gets worse. No, they're not what's worse. If you don't expect to see rats down here, there's something wrong. Now he knows what happened to Pepe/Morris, and he's pretty sure that's the Paramalfait he's hearing. But that's still not what's worse. That is what's worse. He can't change his mind and make an appointment to come back later. It is time to fight the monster. Do you know where your magic stick is? That right there was an ongoing problem in this series. It's so dark you can't tell what's happening. This was a throwaway scene, so it doesn't matter that much, but many other scenes have that problem, and some of them are pretty crucial. Was it one of the things that contributed to the show's demise? I'm not sure, but I'll bet somebody here knows. And now we know what product he used to dye his hatband brown. While it's searching for him in the water and going the wrong way, he needs to find his bag and his stick again. He left them back there by Pepe. As usual, it disappears, so he has no evidence that it ever existed. But now that he's not being chased by a giant salad, he can find another manhole and get out of there.
The supportive evidence for my theory was washed away through the Chicago Sanitary Canal. But why call it a theory? It was really a fact. How could it possibly happen? Well, they say that the mystics of India, while in a trance, can grow back severed fingers and move boulders with the power of their minds. It's documented. Somehow, Paul Langlois, in his special dream state, did even more than that. He created a palpable horror.
I'm sorry, sir, but could you please wait outside? You're stinking up the whole ER.
When I contacted the sleep lab, they told me Dr. Pollock had lost his taste for pure research. He'd shaved off his beard and gone back to Long Island to work in the family shoe business.
I'm sure he'll sleep easier that way. What? You knew I had to do it. He looks like a whole load of sugar plums. The best thing you can do. Not that. Hope from If I lived closer to Seattle, I think I got crap. Well, go talk to Carl. But I've played guitar for some very... Don't bite yourself.